Today is Thursday, January the 26th, and the location of the interview is the Veterans Center in Walla, Washington. I am interviewing Dennis Mobley, that would be M-O-B-L-E-Y, a Vietnam veteran, and he left the service as an E5. Dennis was born July 16, 1949. Dixie Ferguson and Vic Phillips, the videographer, are conducting the interview today, and we represent the Blue Mountain chapter of the American Red Cross. So, just once again, Dennis, what war and branch of service did you serve?
In the Vietnam War, in the United States Army.
Mm-hmm. And were you drafted or did you enlist?
I enlisted.
Enlisted. And where were you living at the time that you enlisted?
I was living here in Walla.
Walla. Were you born and raised here?
Yes.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yes.
And why did you enlist?
I felt it was my duty to serve. Seemed like every generation has their war, and
That's right.
I thought Vietnam would be mine.
Mm-hmm. At the time, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but there was so much controversy, you felt like it was a worthy American cause.
Yes, I did.
Mm-hmm. Great. And family here? Did you have brothers, sisters? Your family was here?
Well, my older brothers had moved away. My next to the oldest brother, my third brother, was in WSU at the time.
Mm-hmm. Which would be Washington State University.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, you joined in 1968.
I joined in 1967.
67. So that was, as you were aware, things were really starting to heat up.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Did you have classmates that were being drafted?
No, I didn't. I wanted to go in with a friend of mine, but as it turned out, he didn't go and I did.
And you enlisted.
Yes.
All right. And you enlisted right here in Walla, and then what happened after that?
Well, I enlisted at 17. My dad gave permission, and then I was in reserves for about 6 months, and then in June 5th, I went up up to Spokane and took my oath and all that.
You were inducted in Spokane.
Yes.
Yes. And then after that, you were sent where for basic training?
Fort Lewis.
Fort Lewis. So that wasn't too far away.
No.
Okay. Reality has set in. Did you have any doubts so far?
Well, yeah. Once I got into basic training, I realized that that they were serious.
Right. Right. Okay. Could you describe basic training? How long it was, and like food? What was a typical day?
Well, it was 8 weeks. Woke up very early. Usually 5 o'clock. Got down to the mess hall, ate. They told us to eat fast because they weren't going to give us a lot of time, so we did. And then the rest of the day was training, basic training. I learned how to shoot a rifle. I learned how to march. I'd had some drill and ceremonies in ROTC in high school, and so I was familiar with that. I did pretty well in basic training.
Good. And I assume you went through Walla High School ROTC program.
Yes.
Which does have a great reputation.
Yes. Yes.
Long-standing.
Yes.
Right. So that helped prepare you, no doubt.
Yes, it did. And I was good enough to, after I went to basic training, I went to Fort Knox, Kentucky for my AIT, Advanced Individual Training, in armor. I wanted to be a tanker, and I was.
They granted your wish.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Why a tanker?
Well, one thing, I didn't want to walk, and I had since younger years I'd had the idea that I wanted to be a tanker. My 9th grade science project was the history of armor.
There you go.
And so I was very happy to be in tanks.
Yeah. Okay. So you're off to Fort Riley.
Yes.
And
Fort Knox,
I'm sorry, Fort Knox. And how long was your training there?
My training there was 8 weeks. And then after AIT, there was half of the company went to Germany, half of the company went to Vietnam, and 3 of us went to drill corporal school in Fort Knox.
Oh, okay. What does that entail?
It's basically an NCO academy, but there was a lot of drill and ceremony, and there was a lot of how you carried yourself and how your patches were to be displayed on your uniform. And basically I was pushing cycles of new trainees, basic training, through their cycles.
So you obviously had done well enough to
Yeah.
to be accepted into that.
I thought it was a great. I thought it was a great honor. I pushed 3 different cycles, about 6.5 months, I suppose, of different troops. We'd keep them for 2 months, and then they'd go to their individual AITs wherever they went. We did pretty good. I wasn't in charge of the platoon. I was an assistant to the drill sergeant. But at one point, my father had become ill, and he passed away in February of 68.
That would be tough.
Yeah.
Very
So after he had passed away, I felt that I really couldn't train troops to be in combat if I hadn't been in combat. So I volunteered to go to Vietnam.
Were you really close to your father?
Yes.
That was tough. Yeah. Yeah. Was it sudden?
Well, it was in a way. He was diagnosed with cancer while I was in basic training, and so that was in June, July and August, I think, and then he passed away the following February.
And for the record, what was his first name?
Vern.
Vern Mobley.
Yes.
Okay, very well. Well, then, were you, for want of a better word, enjoying the tanks or everything you expected about being in that corps?
Yes, I was. Yeah, and I always felt that it was my duty to be in front, and I usually was in front. And I always thought that if I could be in a position to save lives, I always thought that that's what I wanted to do, and I tried my best.
I'm sure. Okay, fast forward then, you got your orders for Vietnam.
Yes.
And that's what you really wanted to do. The girls going to Germany, that's not what you wanted to do.
No, I didn't. I didn't really want to go to Germany. I wanted to go to Vietnam. I wanted to get combat experience, and I left Fort Knox in June, and I came home and had a leave, a 30-day leave, and I went to, I shipped out of San Francisco July 5th, 1968.
Never forget it.
Yeah.
And when you say, you flew or a ship?
No, I flew. I flew the Flying Tigers
Oh, yeah.
Airlines.
Yeah, very traditional.
Yeah.
We've interviewed a Flying Tiger from World War II.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, where did you land?
I landed in Nhut, which is a big Air Force base just outside of Saigon, and went to a replacement depot, repo depot, we used to call them. And I was there probably about 4 days, and I was then shipped to Cu Chi, the 25th Division headquarters. And I spent a week there in indoctrination, and while I was there, I turned 19. I had my 19th birthday.
Yeah, so young, yeah.
Yeah.
Backing up a little bit, when you first landed, were you circling around looking down and looking at the scene?
Yes.
Okay, what were your first impressions in looking through the window and then walking out the door of the plane?
Well, my first impression was there's a lot of bomb craters around there, and I knew that I was in a war. And then when I first got out, it was the smell of Vietnam that their sanitation wasn't all that good, and the heat. It was very, very hot.
Very humid.
Yes, very humid. Yeah.
And those first 4 days, can you describe initially what was going on those first 4 days?
Well, they pretty much indoctrinated us as to what to expect. The booby traps, and we got to know what the heat was, and to drink lots of water and things, but pretty much just what to expect while we were there.
So you were still, your MOS was still tanks.
Yes.
So that's why, okay, then you were attached to the 25th.
Yes. Yeah.
And let's see, at this point, are we in 1968 at this point?
Yes, we are.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, the heat of the war. You're right in the thick of it. So, how did you get out to the 25th?
Well, I flew from Nhut to Cu Chi, like I say, and then after I was assigned to a specific unit, I was assigned to the 2nd Battalion, 34th Armor in Lai Khe, which was south of Cu Chi, and it was the 1st Division base. And although I was in the 25th Division, I worked mainly with the 1st Division for 6 months, and then after 6 months, it got to be such a hassle for the Army that they just gave our unit over to the 1st Division.
What specifically was your mission?
Basically, when I got there, it was the rainy season. So being on a tank, we couldn't get off the roads too much. And by roads, I mean dirt roads. There was no paved roads. So the first 2 or 3 months I was there, I was actually a maintenance, a motor pool sergeant, although I had no training whatsoever in that. And that lasted about 6 weeks, and I volunteered to get into a tank platoon. And like I say, it was rainy season, so we'd drive out to a fire support base, and on Highway 13, Thunder Road, they called it. And basically, that first, maybe 4 weeks or so, we'd run behind the engineers who would sweep the roads for the convoys that were coming through. That was the road that went up to An Loc, and ran supplies over this road, at least one convoy a day. So we follow the engineers who are on foot with minesweepers, and they swept the road. Not very good, I might add, because it wasn't more than probably a month after I got to my platoon, I hit my first mine. And I was following the engineers who had swept it, and then come to find out why their mine was set off by bamboo. They split a piece of bamboo and put wax on either end, and then have a nail on the top, a head of a nail on the top, and a head of a nail on the bottom. And then as you drove over this, it would wear that wax out until those two nails made contact, and then that would detonate the mine.
How would, it's so primitive but effective.
Oh yes, very effective. After I hit that mine, it pretty well blew the road wheels off the tank, and I was driving and it went off in the back, so I was safe, but it blew the tank commander and the gunner off the tank. They were both wounded, and I had to stay there with the tank because I couldn't leave it out on this road. And
how many were of you in the tank?
Just three of us. We were always a man short because there was not enough of us to go around. So everybody rode on the outside instead of ride on the inside. The gunner and the loader and the tank commander all were on the inside, and of course the driver was on the inside. But we only had three. We never had, if we had four, it was only for a day or two, and then he would ship to another tank, and then or somebody would go home and he would take their place. So we were always a man short.
Okay. Specific to that experience, unexpected, did it literally just blow them off the tank? So
yes, it did.
What all happened then? You were immobilized, and
oh, yeah.
Someone came and got you, and how about them? Were they taken to like a field hospital?
Yes, they were. Yeah, they were. Yeah.
And how about you?
I was unhurt. I was in the driver's compartment in front, and it went off in the back, and it blew the left side road wheels and everything off the tank from probably the middle to the end of the drive, big drive sprocket they had there. It blew all the road wheels off and cracked the fuel tank, and the fuel tank, all the fuel drained out and was in this crater. And the reason I knew what had set it off was there was a little piece of bamboo in there that was on fire, and this fuel, it was almost like a wick. The fuel wasn't burning, but this little piece of bamboo was, because it was soaked in diesel.
It is so hard to imagine that would impact a tank like that.
Oh yeah, it was about a 40-pounder, we figured, but it was, usually that's what would happen. It would warp the hull so you couldn't bolt all the road wheels and all the arms and stuff that carried the weight. You couldn't get it back on there right, so they would give us a new tank.
Well, then what did you do for the rest of the day or days?
I sat around until they brought in a big dragon wagon, we call them. Then they winced the tank up on the back of this. It's just a big semi with a lowboy on it. They winced the tank back up there, and I went back spent the rest of the day at base camp at Like. And
how are you feeling?
Well, I felt lucky, but
a little shaken up there.
Yeah, a little shaken up. Of course, you never, you don't realize how shook you really are until it's usually afterwards, and then you really get then you really get to thinking about how it could have gone down.
Absolutely. And then that was early on.
Yeah, I'd been there probably, I would say probably 2 months.
So did that just kind of make you a little bit more anxious, skittish in moving forward?
Not really. I had a job to do, and you know, and mines, as far as mines, as long as it didn't go off underneath the driver's compartment, I was all right. There was a lot of steel between me and the mine, but like I say, that was my first time I'd hit a mine. I hit while I was over there. I hit 3 of them.
3 different times,
Yeah.
and safe through all 3 events.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Very fortunate.
Yeah.
Did you go all over the 25th? That would have been Mekong area. Right?
No, it actually was up around the Parrots Peak, up around Tainan. It was north. It was Like was about 35 or 40 miles northeast of Saigon.
The action, I mean, it was hot and heavy through that whole region.
Yeah. It's after the rainy season was over, then we started crashing around through the jungle. And what they'd use us for is a battering ram. And you'd, you know, some of the taller jungles and things like that, you could push the trees over. You had to watch them because the canopy was so thick that they would, on occasion, snap in half and then fall right back on top of the tank. But you can learn to recognize those things. And of course, as you were crashing around through the jungle, you were shaking every little bug in the world out of the trees. And my driver's compartment had leaves, scorpions, and rats. And they lived. The rats lived in the
trees.
Well, they would come up and get on the tank and then get down below the deck of the turret, and then they live down there. And,
that would be my war with the rats.
Yeah, I think the worst was red ants, because they would kind of rain down on you out of the trees, and they'd be all over you. I remember the first time I ran into them, I had them in my ears, and I kept my mouth shut and tried to plug my nose. And
so the red ants in your ears and
they bit. They would they bite with their heads, and their rest of their bodies were up in the air, just wiggling around. But I've seen guys come up out of the driver's hatch and you know, just covered in ants. But so that was one, and scorpions. There was a lot of scorpions that would crawl around down in there. But
yeah. And the humidity, just all the factors. So was there any typical day? Did you go back to base camp, or you went forward, or? No,
we once it quit raining and we could be out in the jungle, we would crash around, and then at night we'd have they called it a night defensive position. We'd all circle up, and then of course you had to stand guard. There was only 3 of us, so everybody had to do 2 hours of guard.
Creepy?
Yeah, it was, because I never got enough sleep.
No.
And as long as we were there one night, we were fine. If we were there 2 or 3 nights in the same position, they would have gotten their stuff together where they would try to ambush us or hit us.
And you really never know where they're coming from.
No, that's one thing about the tanks. You could hear a tank coming 5 miles away, and when we were running convoys, the ground would shake, so they knew where we were. We occasionally worked with infantry, and they would ride our tank until we were fired on, and then you'd look back and they were gone. You didn't know where they went, but they were gone, and that quick. They weren't going to stay around us. So.
Yes, yeah. What did that do to your back and your body?
Well,
Crashing around like that.
You would be surprised. I remember the one time, the first time I was on a tank, and I was running down the road. There was a big mine crater, and it was big, and I kept thinking, this tank's going to hit this, and really I would feel it, but I didn't. The track rolled right over the top of it. It was a 6-foot wide hole, and the tank never even budged. So in that respect, it was pretty comfortable. Sitting on hard steel was not the best thing, but.
Where did you sleep at night?
At night, we always had a cot. Everybody carried a cot, and usually, depending on how afraid I was, we'd sleep behind the tank.
You bet.
If I was really afraid, I'd sleep underneath the tank.
Yeah.
So.
It must get very spooky and quiet at night out there.
It was very quiet, and I remember one night we were overlooking this little river. We were on a bluff above this river, and you could probably see 10, 12 miles. And it was dark. There was no lights. There was never any lights.
Right.
I could see this little flashing light of a helicopter, and it was clear across the river. And I was thinking, it was the only light you could see, and it blinked on and blinked off, and then all of a sudden, tracer fire came up from the ground, and I thought, oh God, I'm going to see this poor guy, get shot down, and I was kind of fascinated by, and all of a sudden his light went out, that light went out, and up above a gunship came on, and they started firing rockets at where this fire had come from, and that was the first time I'd ever seen they called them a pink team. They'd send one.
Say the word.
Pink.
P-I-N-K.
Yeah, pink team.
T-E-A-M.
Yeah, they would take 2 helicopters. One of them would be a little Loach, which was one of the little observation helicopters. He'd fly low, and then the gunship or 1 or 2 gunships would be up above, and his job was to draw fire, and the gunship was to go down and waste who was ever firing at him.
Gosh, I mean the courage of you young men, just amazing.
Well, it was we didn't look at it that way, but it was a job to us. It was what we were trained to do, and.
This is not a trick question, because I was very much involved at the time too. I believed, everything, and I just, I'm reflecting back. So my question is, you were still very much believing this is the right thing to do.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Yes. I like I say, and I think most people that were over there weren't fighting for the Vietnamese people. We weren't fighting for mom and apple pie and all that other. We were fighting for our other.
Your buddies.
Other soldiers.
You bet. And again, what did you believe the mission was?
I believe the mission was to win the war.
Against communism.
Yes.
Against communism.
Yes.
Yeah, that was it. Okay, so did you ever get to see a Viet Cong, close and personal?
Not up close. Well, I suppose the closest was probably 40 yards away. I don't know what happened to him. My gunner, I was the tank commander at that time, and my gunner told me that there was a guy over there, and I fired at him. But we did see him long distance. I had one occasion, we were sweeping down to a group of huts, and there was an infantry company sweeping towards us, and we were the blocking of force. And I saw this guy get up and start to run across. He probably ran 75 to 100 yards, and there was 3 of our tanks, and we fired at him everything we had, and the infantry fired at him everything they had. It's just like the movies. You could see the little spurts of dust flying. He cleared a 5 or 6 foot hedge, and we never did find him. But he was definitely moving. But that was the first time I had occasion to use an M16, and it misfired because we didn't really take care of him very much. We had so many weapons on the tank that I even carried a case of grenades just because I could. And at the time we were there, whatever we wanted, whatever we needed, they sent it to us.
They did, so you were always well supplied.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Did you ever see the Coochie tunnels?
No. Okay. In fact, it's that time we didn't even know they existed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and while I was at Coochie, there was probably a tunnel, although I don't know, but they had tunnels all over that base. But at that time, nobody really, the regular soldier wasn't aware that there were tunnels there.
Sure. On a daily basis, you were eating what, mostly sea rations?
Sea rations. Our cook would send us breakfast in the morning in mermite cans, they call them, that kept the food warm. Never got real eggs. Got a lot of powdered eggs. Which,
milk, yeah.
Yeah, and which I rather enjoyed the powdered eggs. They were always scrambled. But other than that, we'd have potatoes and bacon and things like that. And then throughout the day, we'd eat sea rations.
And were you out in the field most of the time? Most
of the time, yes. The only time I went back to base camp is when there was something mechanical wrong with the tank, and which happened a lot because you crashed around through the jungle so doggone much that you would wear things out, and they'd break down, and mostly suspension. Mostly was
What kind of a tank was it?
It was an M48A3.
What did they call the Patton? A Patton tank?
Yeah.
It wasn't from World War II, was it?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
It was, I believe it was first introduced in 1948.
Interesting, yeah. Did you stay the whole time with the tanks when you were over there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And was every day a totally different experience? Were there just some days that kind of dull and other days not so dull?
It was exactly like that. They would say, well, we're going out and, we're going to run into a whole mess of them and be on your guard. So you'd be on your guard all day and nothing would happen. Sure. And other days they'd say, well, you just a routine, and that's usually when you got ambushed.
You bet. How long of a day? It just depended on the day. How long of a day would it be?
Well, several occasions it went over 24 hours.
Yeah.
that was very difficult. We didn't get enough sleep anyway. And then, but usually it was from sun up to sundown.
Yeah, right. Did you dread the nights?
I did, only because I knew I wasn't going to get enough sleep. The nights, like I said, we were so well armored in everything, and we were the biggest thing that on the ground. If we ran into trouble, they'd call in jets and bomb it. But I never really, at night it wasn't any different. As long as we were there for one night, we were fine.
Interesting. How about mail from home, communication?
Oh, yeah.
Did that keep up with you pretty well?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Yes, yeah.
Were you ever able to see any of the entertainment over there? Bob Hope,
No.
USO, anything?
No.
Did you ever get into base camp and the recreation centers?
Like I say, I don't know if we had in Lyke they had a village in the middle of the base camp. We'd go to the Ville, but I never really saw any entertainment, and I didn't realize that when I got to Lyke that they called it Rocket City, and I had never really figured that out until I'd spent some time at base camp. It was one of the most rocketed base camps in South Vietnam.
Were there very many casualties while you were over there amongst your own?
We lost one guy. He was in the 1st platoon, but other than that, no. Guys were wounded, but they always came back.
That's
there
good.
was never bad enough to not see him again.
While you're over there, was there one or two experiences that really stand out with you?
There was two. The first one was we were building this fire support base, and it was our 3rd night there. And they had infantry out stringing wire, and they had an APC, armored personnel carrier, out in front of us. He wasn't probably 30 feet in front of us, and he took an RPG, and it was, like I said, it was dark, and you knew that if you were out at night, you were in trouble. We had a big berm that was in front of this, in front of our tank, a big pile of dirt that the engineers had pushed up, and I remember sitting there after this went off. Of course, we were on alert, ready for anything to happen, and the infantry guys out there were you could hear them, that pitiful.
Just take your time. It's a very emotional thing.
You could hear them out there crying. They were yelling, "Tankers, tankers, help us!" So I went out there. I didn't even take and I had my little old first aid kit that came with with a tank, and the first guy I got to was in a bad way, real bad way, and about that time our medic came up and was taking care of him. One of the guys said, "There's another guy in the track." They called the APC tracks, and so I went in there, and he was laying on the floor, and of course it smelled like cordite, and so anyway, he was laying there about half conscious, and he kept saying, "My arm, I can't feel my arm." Well, I could see his arm, and I picked it up, and then from about the elbow, his elbow was pretty much gone. But he had little bitty shrapnel wounds all over him, and so I was putting those little gauze things all over him, trying to calm him down, and finally I realized that he needed a medic, and I went outside. There was a new medic from their probably their company. He wasn't our medic, but he was standing outside. He was just a young kid, and he didn't want to go in there. And I got him in there and then went back to my tank. The second one was when I was wounded in the Michelin rubber plantation. When they went in there, they always said things like, well, we're going into the Michelin. This is owned by the French. It said, and they told us, it says, you can't, try not to blow up their trees because we'll have to pay for their trees. Well, that always struck me as, anyway, we were going.
Wait a minute, did the French still own the trees?
Yeah, well, they owned the whole plantation.
Oh.
As it turned out, it was a base camp for a VC battalion. And one of the tanks, it wasn't our tank, one of the tanks that we always moved online, and it got hit and was burning. And so we stopped, and there was an infantry cav unit behind us, and they came roaring up on their PCs, on their APCs, and they stopped even with us, and everybody got off, because on things like that, everybody rode on the outside. Nobody really rode on the inside, because they would die if they hit it's better to be blown off than to be blown all to pieces. Mm-hmm. So when they got even with us, they stopped, and they got everybody off. And then they went about another 10 yards, and they stopped again, and everybody got back on their track. And they hadn't gone probably another 5 yards when that PC took a direct hit with an RPG. Mm. And I remember looking over at the tank commander. I was a gunner at that time, and I looked over at the tank commander and I said, do you think we ought to load the main gun? And he looked down at me and said no, and I looked back just about that time. I was a piece of shrapnel hit me right in the face here. Mm. And knocked me onto the back deck. Mm. And Doc, bless his heart, was right there, put a big field dressing on it, and he put it over my eye like this, and then he took the dressing and wrapped it around the other eye, so I was pretty much blind, except I could see a little bit here. And of course, being that way, and with all the fire and bombs going off and RPGs whizzing by, why, it scared me quite a lot.
Of course.
Yeah.
You can't explain that experience to anybody.
No.
Who has not been there.
Yeah. And
your recollection is amazing.
Yeah, it's
details.
It's amazing how it sticks with you. That's something like you, as much as you would like to forget it, you're not ever going to. Yeah. And so you might as well just, learn to live with it.
You're so right, Dennis. Absolutely. Yeah. How fast would those tanks go?
Probably top speed somewhere between 35 and 40 miles an hour.
That was pretty
yeah.
Quick, huh?
We moved out real quick when we were running convoys. Mm-hmm. We escorted convoys a lot of times too. There'd be two tanks or one tank in front, and then convoy commander behind us, and then convoys, and then there'd be another tank in the middle and maybe one at the end.
And very vulnerable.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Going convoy, yeah.
Yeah, they, one particular time I was out posting the road, and what we do is pull off the road and wait for the convoy to go by, and then we could continue doing whatever. But I remember seeing this, it was a big fuel tanker truck, and of course he had his top down. They had canvas tops, and I remember he caught an RPG. I just happened to glance over at him, and he caught an RPG right in the tank. It was probably 4,000 to 6,000 gallon tank. Mm. And I remember him, he ducked down like this.
It's okay.
And turned off the road. And he never, I'm sure he didn't ever make it. Tank the truck blew up, but he wasn't going to stop in the middle of the road. They were trained not to stop. Once you stop, then they could get you all. But I remember him I just happened to catch right when that RPG hit, and he cranked that wheel as hard as he could, and off toward the jungle he went.
I repeat, the courage is indescribable.
Well, I don't know if it's courage. You were trained to do a job, and you did it. You know.
Boy, that's courage, and of course, I'm very biased to the American soldier. You guys are the best. Well, you're getting toward the end of your tour. Did you have that experience of the 30 last days, short timer experience?
I did, and it's kind of funny. Of course, it seemed like when you first got there, it didn't bother you so much about being killed, you know. But at the last 30 days, you always, you know, it was like one of those things. Well, gee, I made it through the whole darn war, and now I'm going to die, you know. But luckily, the last 2 months, we were riding escort for Rome plows, which were big D9 Caterpillars.
What are they called?
Rome.
R-O-M-E.
Yeah, they were made in Rome, okay. Georgia. But they'd sharpen their blade every night. What they did is they'd just go through the jungle and knock it all down so that there wouldn't be any canopy left. And so we ran escort for the Rome plows. They would just like harvesting wheat. They'd they'd go around a square, and pretty soon they'd have all the trees down, and then they'd move to another section, and there was probably 6 to 8 of them, and they were just like combines, one right behind the other. And
were they effective?
They were. As far as knocking down the jungle, clearing the jungle, and I think it was a lot better than Agent Orange, although Agent Orange did the same thing, only it was, we didn't find out till later how
I was going to
bad
ask you what you were not aware of its effect.
No, we'd see them spray. We'd see the C-130s or 128s or something like that, big cargo planes, and they'd be spraying, but we never...
no idea.
Yeah, we never really realized what it was.
Sure. Well, your tour is winding down. You got back to base camp to be...
to be shipped out. I got back probably... I probably had a week left. And when I got back, I actually was able to leave Vietnam 3 days early of my... So I was there 362 days. Yeah.
Did you go back out of Ton Sanut again?
Yes, I did.
So what were your feelings here you are, you're boarding the plane, taking off. Do you remember that experience, the emotion you had?
Yeah, I do. It was relief that I'd made it. I didn't find out till later that if I would have stayed another 6 months, extended my tour, I could have gotten out of the Army earlier. But as it was, I came back and got my leave, and then went to Fort Riley, Kansas.
Okay. Did you take any R&R while you were over there?
I did. I went to Taipei, Taiwan.
All right. One R&R.
Yes. Yeah. One.
Was it surreal to go there and then have to come back?
It was. It was a little bit, but you felt like you were invincible, and I kind of feel bad for the Chinese people that I met, because I knew they couldn't kill me because I was, and I knew where I was going back to, Vietnam. So But yeah, it was, and I never ate any Chinese food either.
Really?
I always had steaks or I remember this one escort lady I was with. I took her out to dinner, and she had this great big bowl of soup, it looked like, and of course I had a steak, and I asked her what it was, and she said something in Chinese, and I didn't understand her, and she picked up little chopsticks, and they were chicken feet.
Oh.
There was a soup made of chicken feet,
Oh,
and
boy.
I didn't want that.
Oh, gosh, why waste good chicken?
Yeah, well, they didn't waste any. I think they ate everything in the quack, too, I think so.
Oh, well, so you're back at Fort Riley then?
Yes.
Okay, and do you want to share getting back home, the events taking place after you got back?
Well, I had a 30-day leave when I left Vietnam. I spent 2 weeks with my brother in California and his family, and then came back up here and spent the remainder of the 2 weeks, and then I shipped out to Fort Riley, and then of course I was in a repo depot again. It seemed like I spent at least part of my year in a repo depot, in a replacement depot, and I went to the first of the 63rd Armor Brigade, a battalion, actually brigade, in Fort Riley, and of course I had rank, so
E5 at the time.
yeah, E5
Yes.
at the time, right. So I got my own room. I didn't have to sleep in the barracks, and got my own room, and Christmas time came around, and you could either take Christmas off or New Year's off. Well, I went home and I took both of them. I didn't come back. I was AWOL for a while, and so I lost a grade there. I went from E5 to E4 after I got back.
Do you know at the time why you chose to do that?
Well, I just wanted to spend some time, and I thought I'd already, I knew I had obligations to stay in there, but I thought I'd already did my time, and I was pretty cocky back then.
The Army didn't quite see it that way.
No, they were one way about it, for sure. It was their way.
And they
or,
found
yeah.
you.
Yeah, so anyway, that was Christmas time, and then just before I got out, I was getting short. I was probably had 2 months left. I'd had a profile on my ears, so I couldn't be around loud noises. And being in the tank, I
Now,
didn't.
what does that mean, a profile on your ear? What does that mean?
It's a medical term.
Oh.
That I had bad ears, and my ears were pretty well shot, and so I couldn't be around loud noises. So I got to drive the first sergeant's Jeep, and he never went anywhere. So I never really went anywhere, but I got in a little bit of trouble. The last I was busted for 0.05 grams of marijuana, and it was Kansas marijuana, which wasn't worth a darn anyway, but it had enough THC in it that they court-martialed me, and they actually busted me 3 days before I was due to get out. And so I had to, so I had to spend 3 more months in the service. While I waited, actually about 2 months, while I waited to be court-martialed. Then I was court-martialed, got my honorable discharge, then reduced in rank to an E1. So,
any benefits as a result of that?
What?
When you, as an Army veteran?
I have a Purple Heart, so that gave me,
you.
yeah, that gave me a leg up, and plus I had an honorable discharge.
Right.
I wasn't
Right. Right.
I wasn't dishonorably discharged.
Seems like a kind of a minor infraction, you know.
Well,
They
yeah.
take the AWOL pretty seriously, I suppose.
Yeah, the AWOL was, I thought was minor, but they really thought that this this marijuana charge was the bigger deal. But I was lucky. After I was supposed to get out in June, I didn't get out till October 18th. So.
And then you were free to go. And then what were the next few years like, Dennis?
Well, I kind of just bummed around, and I didn't really do much.
Did you feel disoriented?
Yes. I there was a lot of things I didn't understand. I didn't understand why when the Vietnam veterans got back, we were treated so badly.
And speaking of that, did you have a specific experience when you landed?
Oh yeah, I landed at Travis Air Force Base, and there was protesters that were protesting the war and protesting us, and said some things to us that none of us really understood.
Of course not. And then again, you were just saying you were just feeling a little bit lost, disoriented after the service. Then just trying to find your feet. Right.
I came back to Walla Walla in October, and it wasn't the same. I couldn't stay here, so I had met a friend in Fort Riley, Kansas, that had got out earlier than I did, and he was living in Seattle. And I called him, and he said, "Come on up." And we went up. I went up to Seattle and lived with 5 guys in a place on Capitol Hill. Really nice place. At that time, Boeing had laid off a bunch of people, and so there was a lot of unemployment in Seattle. And when I went down to get my unemployment, because I got out as an E1, I only got $66 a month.
Ooh, wow.
And my rent was $30-some a month.
My.
So I did that winter up in Seattle. I mostly walked around or hitchhiked around. I had a car, but I didn't have enough money to put gas in it.
But you weren't homeless.
No, I wasn't homeless. I've not ever been homeless.
That's good.
Yeah. So
because I know that it was a very difficult time, like not the other.
Yeah, it was.
wars.
It was.
Yeah,
I couldn't understand that. I was brought up to that a veteran, a soldier, was treated with somewhat more respect than I thought we were treated with. Fact is, I couldn't talk too much about this to anybody except other veterans, and most people didn't want to hear it, and didn't care about your experiences.
Right.
So.
Have things changed today?
Yes, I think it was 1980 was the first time that the Vietnam veterans here in Walla Walla marched in the Veterans Day parade, and I felt pretty good about that. But nowadays, we are recognized and for what we did a little bit more, and the way that soldiers nowadays are treated is very gratifying, because even though I'm not wasn't in their war in Iraqi or Iran, or but I feel very satisfied with the way it is.
Good. Because we've interviewed World War II veterans who have expressed dismay about the way you have been treated.
Well, That's nice to hear.
They grieve over that.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, it was one of those things. It's just the time, the way that it all shook out. But I always felt it could have been better. You didn't have to hate the guys that were over there. We didn't. We weren't there to. We didn't start the war, and we didn't. Like I say, we weren't fighting for the Vietnamese. We were fighting for the other American soldiers that were over there.
Well, Dennis, yes. And what did you eventually? Where did you land and get your wings? Eventually, what took place?
I was working for a farmer out in Spofford, just south of town, and I was seeding peas, and I broke a wheel off of one of the seeders, the drills they called them, and this farmer I was working for took that axle, which is a stub axle, was only about so long, but he took it back to his shop and he welded it up, and he put it back on there, and I ran the rest of that harvest, or that rest of that planting thing, and I was amazed that he could weld that up. So and so I took up welding on the GI Bill and became a welder.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
And I was very satisfied with that. Gave me satisfaction because when you build something of steel, it's going to be around forever,
Yes.
well, as long as somebody takes care of it.
Yes.
But it was a certain amount of satisfaction.
Excellent.
That,
Working with the hands, accomplishing,
yes,
making
yes,
things.
Yes, yes,
Absolutely.
yes,
Well, that's great. As far as your personal life, did you get married, children?
No, I never got married. Never had any children. I just there was something that I just never got married. I had a lot of girlfriends, and but most of them only lasted 4 or 5 years.
And this is my 5-cent psychology. It could possibly be related to the post-war.
I always thought so. Yeah, I always thought so. I always thought that there was something missing in me that I couldn't commit.
No, I
to
think
one.
that's very valid.
Yeah.
I really do. Well, today, do you belong to any veterans organizations? Do you get together with the vets? Your buddies?
I am very well taken care of at the VA.
Good.
They take care of me very well.
Good.
I had a little episode back in 70s where, and I didn't realize what it was. I am diagnosed with PTSD. It surfaced real early, and I went to the VA, and I couldn't take it in their psych ward, and so I left against doctor's orders. So I was never really, they never really wrote it down, so it wasn't until, I suppose probably 5 or 6 years ago that I realized that I needed help.
And you did go through a program or
Yeah.
rehab?
Yeah, I went
Here in
see-
Walla Walla?
Yes,
Good.
yes.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Like I say, that Purple Heart really opened up. The first time I went to the VA was, well, like I say, back in the 70s, and I've been going to the VA ever since. They've been my primary
Good.
caregiver, and they've been very good about it.
Good. I'm glad to hear that
Yeah.
report. Well deserved.
Yeah.
That's good news. Well, here you are today. Is there anything that I overlooked? Vic, do you have any questions?
Where did you get your welding training?
At community college, at Gary Butis
Yeah.
was my instructor.
Vic knows, yeah. He
Yeah.
was out there for 22 years.
Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah, Gary was real good. It was awful hard for me to concentrate, and I suppose I used the money just because I needed it. But Gary was and Myron were very aware of I think of what was going on with me, or other veterans. But and I worked for Inland Machine for a while, and I did a lot of structural. The new Wahai building, which was put up in '92, I think. I did all that structural.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Man,
yeah.
that's great.
Yeah, it's gratifying to see the
No kidding.
buildings that
Mhm.
you know.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I do have one more question. Have you ever gone to the Vietnam Wall?
No, I never have.
Would you want to?
Well, yeah, I think so. I would like to, but I don't know if, traveling in an airplane in a box like that is very tough on me.
Mhm.
Although, a car ride or maybe I like trains, so, if I could get there maybe on a train. But flying, I don't know, to spend that amount of time.
Sure. That's understood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope I covered everything, but you have really shared very well, very articulate, the details, and I hope this really goes forward in their listening ears to understand
Yeah.
this particular war and just a different type of suffering and experience. So I really want to thank you, Dennis.
Yeah, I really wanted to do this
Good.
so my family could.
Good. This is, yes. And just a parting comment. Families have appreciated the story so much. They'll say, well, they never told us that. And especially like World War II veterans who have passed on.
Right.
And to hear their voice one
Yeah.
more time,
Yeah.
they really, so it's in every way, this is a wonderful project, and
Yeah.
and thank you for agreeing to come in and share your very interesting story.
You're welcome,
And thank you for your service.
Yeah, and thank you for the opportunity to
Oh,
do this.
it's our total pleasure.
All right.
Yeah, thanks again.
Okay.